On my Jojolion Chapter 98 review video, I thanked you all for helping the channel reach 250 plus subscribers. I was overwhelmed by the progress, so imagine my shock when I see that the channel reached this number in such a short amount of time. Not only that, but you guys have done me the absolute service of watching my videos like crazy and, I assume, enjoying them. Tusk's stand analysis views are through the roof. The subscribers and views may not seem a lot compared to a lot of other YouTubers, but to me, this means so much, especially since this channel is still very new. So thank you one and all for all of your continued support. This week's video is going to be something a little different, as I'll be ranking all the JoJo parts in order from my least enjoyed to my most enjoyed. I will of course be including Jojolion in this list as I recently caught up to the manga, and I feel like I can confidently place it at a position that I feel won't change too much throughout the climax of the manga, unless it's an incredibly bad and stupid ending. But as it stands for now, I know exactly where I'm going to place it. All 8 parts of JoJo are ranked differently in everybody's minds, and no one will always agree with everyone. In essence, not everyone will rank the parts the exact same way, and many people will most likely disagree with my rankings on this video. So please don't get angry if I didn't rank your favourite part very high, or if I placed a part you don't particularly like high up on the list. Also, please be aware of spoilers, as I will be going into detail about why the parts are ranked where they are, and to do that I may need to discuss spoilery things. With that said, let's get started at number 8. Okay, so before you click off the video, let me just explain why Part 4 Diamond is Unbreakable is ranked at the bottom for me. First of all, I didn't hate Part 4, but I felt like the first half of the part was not really structured very well. I wouldn't say that there was no clear goal in mind for Josuke and the crew, as there was always a main objective throughout the entire part. First Angelo, then Keicho, then Akira, leading finally to Kira. Whilst I did enjoy some aspects of Diamond is Unbreakable, it was the slice of life aspect that didn't really grasp me. I'm not going to try and hide the fact that I'm not a huge fan of slice of life anime, and I have seen a lot of people give abuse to Part 4 haters due to them apparently not being able to appreciate the slice of life aspect. However, it just didn't do it for me. The enemy stand users that randomly appeared didn't seem overly interesting to me either, such as Hazamada and Kobayashi. However, once Kira had been introduced, I started to enjoy Part 4 a lot more. As well as Kira, the inclusion of Rohan definitely improved Diamond is Unbreakable for me. Unfortunately though, their inclusion wasn't quite enough to bring Part 4 up a notch on the rankings list. I don't hate Diamond is Unbreakable, nor would I hate anyone for liking it or even putting it at their number 1 spot. However, for me personally, the first half is one of the weakest points of JoJo throughout the entire series, in my own personal opinion. I know a lot of people would disagree with that, and that is absolutely fine. We all have our own personal opinions, and I do not hate anything JoJo related at all, and I could still watch Part 4 over and over again, just maybe not as much as the other parts. Anyway, I've rambled on enough about that, so let's move on to the number 7 position. I will echo what I said for Part 4 when I say that I do not at all hate Part 1 Phantom Blood, nor do I hate any JoJo part. However, this part was the introduction of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and was very experimental. In fact, having a non-Japanese main character was very unheard of back then in Japanese manga. Not only that, but killing off the main character was also incredibly rare. But if you know JoJo, then you'll know that Araki is no stranger to trying new, unique things and taking risks. Phantom Blood is the part that introduced Dio and Jonathan, beginning the feud between Dio and the Joestar bloodline that would span for centuries. It's a staple point of JoJo, and the story was a bit more basic, being based off classic vampire stories such as Dracula. However, without Phantom Blood, we would never have gotten any other part that we have now. It may not be overly high on my list, but I really enjoyed watching and reading Dio and Jonathan's growing hatred for each other, and I can really appreciate the work that Araki put into this part. Again, I do not hate this part by any means, but as Araki had not yet truly refined his storytelling into the unique storylines we have now, as well as the inclusion of stands much later on in Part 3, it did unfortunately fall quite short for me. Nevertheless, I would never recommend skipping this part, or any part for that matter, as this part is incredibly important to learning the future of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Plus, Jonathan is a great JoJo and a true gentleman. Anyway, moving on to number 6. Part 6 Stone Ocean gets a hell of a lot of hate from the JoJo community, but it is in fact a very good part. The story, the characters, the setting, and the stands are all unique and used very well. However, Stone Ocean gets a lot of jip for having some incredibly complex stand ideas, and having a setting which is classed as a bit boring or repetitive. I personally enjoyed a lot of Part 6, particularly the early arcs as well as the endgame. Poochie was also a character who I enjoyed learning about as Stone Ocean went on. Learning his motives and his connections to Dio was very interesting, and in the end of the part, I honestly couldn't decide if I felt Poochie's goal was good or evil. Outwardly, I believe his path towards resetting the universe was full of evil deeds. I mean, he did murder plenty of people to reach his goal. However, I believe that Poochie had the good intentions of humanity in mind. I also really enjoyed the JoJo of this part. Jojolion had some great character development and reflected Jotaro's personality nicely, whilst also being her own unique character. Stone Ocean isn't higher on this list because I do agree that the prison setting was very limited in how it could be used. However, once the crew left the prison to pursue Poochie, there was a lot more scope for variety. Some of the enemy stands were rather unique, perhaps a little overly unique. Araki really pushed the boundaries of his stands in this part, going for much more unique ideas. However, some of them didn't really sit well with me. It's not that I couldn't understand them or that I hate them, perhaps Araki was just trying new things. Whatever the reason, Stone Ocean sits a little bit lower on the list than some of the parts, but I still enjoyed the characters as well as the overall story. Part 2 Battle Tendency was of course the introduction of one of the best JoJo's, Joseph Joestar. This practical joking, tricky, yet strong character is what makes Part 2 incredibly enjoyable to watch. However, the rest of the cast works so well alongside Joseph as well. Even the villains of Battle Tendency stand out and make for some really interesting fights. Personally, my favourite fight in Part 2 was either Joseph vs Santana or Joseph vs Wamu in the Colosseum. Araki made Battle Tendency's characters so lovable that he actually managed to make two Nazis bring tears to the eyes of the viewers and also laughter to their day. Mark and Stroheim in Battle Tendency helped Joseph and his friends a hell of a lot. If it wasn't for Stroheim, I think Joseph would have struggled to defeat Kars and the vampires. There was also Mark, who was only shown briefly, but his untimely death just a few days before he was due to be wed was incredibly heart-wrenching. Alongside Joseph and Stroheim, you also had other awesome cast members like Smokey, Lisa, Arena, and best waifu, Speedwagon. Also, one of the best villains in JoJo, Wamu, who has some very interesting character development as well. Overall, Battle Tendency was a very enjoyable part and features one of the best JoJo's. However, I personally enjoyed other parts more. I think one of the things I loved most about Part 5, Golden Wind, is the setting. I absolutely love Italy, and I think it was a great choice by Araki. The other thing I loved most about Part 5 is the supporting characters. Don't get me wrong, I liked the JoJo in this part with Giorno Giovanna, especially with him being the son of Dio and Jonathan, which sounds really strange if you don't know the context. However, it's the supporting characters that really sold Golden Wind for me. Bruno felt more like the main character in this part compared to Giorno, and I feel like Giorno didn't get as many fights as some of the other characters. I think it's great that Araki gives the supporting characters plenty of chance to shine, and I'm aware that Guido Mister is one of Araki's personal favourite characters, but I kind of felt like Mister had a lot more fights than the other characters. Nevertheless, the duality between each of the characters worked really well, and each of their stands were also different and worked well with the users. It's a shame though that Araki had Fugo leave the group, though I do understand why, because his stand Purple Haze was incredibly overpowered and could probably have gotten them to Diavolo a lot easier and a lot quicker. I'm also aware of the Purple Haze feedback novel, but it's technically not classed as canon, plus I haven't actually read it yet. I also enjoyed a good chunk of the La Squadra team which went against the boss, and also the Doppio Diavolo split personality storyline. I actually think I preferred Doppio over Diavolo. Though they're technically the same person, their personalities are polar opposites, so I'd class them as separate entities within one mind, which is basically what they are. Overall, I loved most of Golden Wind, and one of the personal highlights of the series was the villain versus villain match of Doppio versus Risotto. This part was also really refreshing for me after the slice of life anime style of Part 4. Golden Wind really did hark back to the feeling of Stardust Crusaders for me, which gave me a lot of nostalgia in its own way. Golden Wind had so many amazing things happen in it as well, such as Polnareff returning, and also the mystery of Bruno's eventually decaying body that had been reanimated by Giorno halfway through the part. Golden Wind rightly belongs above the halfway point on this list, however, I personally found some other parts of JoJo to be more enjoyable for me. Part 3 Stardust Crusaders was actually my favourite JoJo part for the longest time. I grew up playing the Heritage for the Future game on PlayStation 1, which was based on Part 3, and I learned all about the story, the characters and the stands through playing the story mode and general free battles. Then I learned there was an old OVA series based upon Part 3, which I watched and enjoyed at the time at least. Eventually, the 2012 David Productions anime was announced, and everything seemed very different. I didn't see Jotaro, Polnareff, Avdol, or anyone I knew from it at all. I was so confused because I thought JoJo was nothing more than Stardust Crusaders at the time. After looking it up, I learned JoJo had 8 parts to it, and I was so excited to delve into the rest of the series that I'd unfortunately missed out on all these years. However, because I grew up playing Heritage for the Future, which was based on Stardust Crusaders, I do have nostalgia goggles on when I look at this part. After catching up with the current manga chapters of Jojolion, I've realised to look a bit more critically at Stardust Crusaders, and now I see that the stands are a lot more bland and some of the characters don't have as much personality or storytelling like some characters from later parts, and the story really is just let's go from point A to point B and defeat the big bad vampire man. As much as I love Stardust Crusaders, I can now admit it is nowhere near perfect, nor is it the epitome of what JoJo is or could be. But due to the fact I have such a connection and attachment to the story and the characters, Part 3 sits nicely at the number 3 spot for me. Again, this part also introduces one of the best JoJos in my opinion, and solidifies himself as probably the most badass JoJo in the entire series. Jojolion has included the most amount of mystery from any JoJo part so far, and made the readers theorize and question nearly every little thing to figure out who the big bad of Jojolion really is. I will not talk about potential main villain candidates just in case some of you aren't up to date. However, since Part 8 began serialization in 2011, Araki has kept the fans guessing and theorizing throughout its entire lifespan. Who is Josuke? How did he become who he is? Who is the main villain of Jojolion? What is the stand of this mystery main villain candidate? Who was the man in the flashback near the beginning of Jojolion? So many questions and only a few have been answered so far. The sense of mystery is overwhelming and has kept me intrigued throughout the majority of the part. Not to mention the main JoJo, Higashikata Josuke, is an incredible addition to the list of JoJos, and has had some really funny moments as well as some really badass moments as well. I can safely say Araki has definitely solidified Josuke 8 into the top ranks for a lot of JoJo fans. The supporting cast has been interesting to learn about too. However, they haven't all really stood out to me. I've really enjoyed reading Josuke and Mamazuku's synergy evolve as the chapters have progressed, and Yasuho's loyalty to Josuke and the general personality is great too. Out of the Higashikata family, the only characters that have properly stood out to me are Jobin, Joshu and Norisuke. I must say that some of my favourite characters in all of JoJo have probably stemmed from this part. Not to mention the level of mystery in JoJo as a whole has been at an all-time high with Jojolion. This one has felt a lot like a murder mystery story at times, especially when it comes down to them finding Kira's dead body underground and trying to figure out how it got there, plus how Josuke became half Kira, half Josefumi. Overall, Jojolion is en route to an awesome endgame arc, and I'm so curious about the main villain or main villains, and to find out their motives. So now it's time to move to my number 1 spot, which probably won't surprise a lot of people, but I can't help agreeing with the people that call Part 7 Steel Ball Run some of the best work that Araki has ever created. I don't believe it's perfect at all, but there is just so much to love about this part. I think one of the main things I love about Steel Ball Run is the silly banter that happens between Johnny and Gyro. Some of it is just so stupid, but absolutely hilarious at the same time. The character development and backstories are incredibly strong in this part as well. Gyro in particular gets a lot of the spotlight across Steel Ball Run. We learn of his goal for entering the race, and eventually we see his goal evolve into hunting for the corpse parts. I also love how Johnny and Gyro are constantly pushing each other to move forward faster and stronger all the time. Without each other, I don't think either of them would have got as far as they did. On top of that, we have the side characters, which many of them got backstories as well, which truly added to their characters. The hunt for the corpse pieces and fighting off the enemies that President Funny Valentine sends after Johnny and Gyro was a great way to include regular enemies for the duo to face on their way to the finish line. Steel Ball Run is ripe with twists and turns, amazing characters, intriguing backstories, and a great main villain. Plus it truly makes you wonder about who is good and who is bad. There are so many reasons why I love each and every JoJo part, but there are some things that I dislike about every part. After all, nothing is ever going to be perfect. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I know most people probably won't agree with all of this ranking list, and that's absolutely fine. Now here's the question for this video. How would you rank the JoJo parts? Let me know in the comments down below. The recent influx of new subscribers has been insane, and if you haven't already subscribed, I'd greatly appreciate if you considered subscribing for future stand analysis videos and general JoJo content. I try to release at least one video a week, as seeing as lockdown is being eased in the UK, I'll soon probably be back at work, so that probably means I will have to stick to at least one video a week, but I'll try and make exceptions with the chapter review and get that out to you as soon as I can every month. I know one video a week on average is not really a lot, but bear with me guys, I'll still get content out to you. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, as it would help me let me know if you're enjoying the content I release, and activate that notification bell as it would help notify you when I next release a video. Thank you so much for watching this video and all of the incredible support guys, you're all truly awesome. Until next time, Bizarre Star Platinum, out.